Hi, Claire and James here. Just before we get stuck into this week's episode, we wanted to let you know the exciting news that the Midlife Reset audit is now live. This is a first of its kind personalised diagnostic tool designed for midlifers by midlifers.
In just 3 minutes, the audit will help you pinpoint what's really holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife, and most importantly, provide tailored strategies on how to take back control. Midlife doesn't have to be a time of uncertainty. It can be an era of growth, discovery, and well-being. So to go ahead and take the audit, go to themidlifementors.com/audit. On this week's episode of the Midlife Mentors podcast, we are thrilled to be joined by Olympic gold medalist and health and wellbeing ambassador, Sally Gunnell. Sally shares her incredible story with us, from when she was first spotted by her coach at 14 to how she navigated retirement from professional sport at the age of just 31. Sally openly shares how her mindset held her back in her early career, how she still uses the tools she learnt today to achieve her goals as a business owner, speaker, and mentor.
Finally, Sally offers us some wonderful insights into staying healthy and happy at midlife, focusing particularly on the positive lifestyle changes we can make. This is such an energising, inspirational conversation, and we hope you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed recording it.
Hi, I'm James Davis.
And I'm Claire Davis.
We're the Midlife Mentors, here to lift the lid on how to achieve health and happiness.
The balanced, no-nonsense way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Midlife Mentors with me, James.
And me, Claire. How are you all? So I don't know when this one is going to go out. We've got a very exciting guest for you. But
really excited for this.
Very excited. But what have you been up to? Just finishing your book that's coming out in a few weeks?
That's gone to the printers now. So I should be getting a box of them in the next few weeks, I'm hoping.
Yeah. Publishers doing bits and bobs behind the scene with a PR company.
Yeah.
And so very exciting.
Some features for some newspapers about it. And that's been it. That's keeping me pretty busy, actually, now I think about it. Not a lot of headspace and much else.
And I think I've said already, I feel like I'm being your PR person, like going back to my roots from when I used to do PR and comms. And
you're doing a fantastic job.
You've got to say that, really, haven't you? So without further ado, let's introduce our fabulous guest for today.
So we are thrilled to be joined today by Olympic gold medalist, health and wellbeing ambassador, Sally Gunnell. Sally, welcome.
Hiya.
Sally, we're so excited to have you on. Thank you for joining us and taking the time out of your busy schedule.
That's all right. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to it. See what we've got to chat about.
Yeah, lots.
Well, lots. Obviously, I know you're doing loads of work around corporate well-being, women's health, particularly around midlife, and we'll dive into that. But I just want to rewind a little bit to kind of like a little bit of your background. Obviously, everyone knows you're Olympics, gold medalist, but how did you first get into athletics? Is it something you always knew you wanted to do, or is it just you excelled at it, so you went down the path? What's the story?
Yeah, I think it's finding something you're good at, isn't it? I wasn't particularly academic, struggled a bit at school, but then when it got to sport and sports day and, you name it, I loved my netball, gymnastics, I was there, hand up first to be picked in all the teams, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I was always the last.
And I just thought, well, I love this. And then a friend was going to the athletics club at 12 years old, Essex Ladies, and I thought, I'd never even heard of clubs, so I thought I'd go with her, and that was it. Spotted by my coach at 14, and the dedication started from there, travelling up from Chigwell in Essex up to Crystal Palace 3 times a week. I could see all those parents going, was that what we really need to do? What my parents did, and I take my hat off now because I know, having kids myself, how hard it is and the commitment. But yeah, they were willing, and so was I, and I loved it.
Oh my goodness! At 14, you were spotted.
14. Yes, yeah. Bruce was my coach throughout my whole career, and he'd just trained Daley Thompson to his gold medal, and then he was like, would love you to have you as part of this elite group. So I sort of rocked up on one day and just surrounded by all these Olympians and whatever. And it was just like, this is it. This is what I want to do in life. And I just loved it. I loved the hard work. I loved, God, I was quite happy with the sacrifices, which sounds silly, doesn't it? But it just gave me so much in my life. I just love learning new things all the time.
It's quite a big thing for someone at 14 to be like thrust into that. Did you find that quite overwhelming at times?
Yeah. No, I mean, I had to balance. I used to get home about 10 o'clock at night and try and we used to come home via the kebab shop. Not sure that would happen anymore. And then we'd try and eat at 10 o'clock and then try and do my homework, and, what was disastrous. And I had very understanding teachers. And I think, from quite a young age, I was sort of, I wasn't brilliant as a youngster, but I was getting on sort of GB weekends or South of England weekends. So yeah. I think the sports teachers and my teachers were really quite understanding and sort of went with it and didn't put the pressure on me, really, which, what a gamble it was.
Yeah, but that paid off.
But something I want to ask, Sally, like, obviously, if like you're competing at like national or maybe even international level still at school age, how was it when you were just doing like inter-school sports? The other schools like, oh no, here she comes.
Yeah, I know.
A bit like that.
It's quite significant that, because I would actually run slow. I would always win, but I hated showing off. So things like running for a bus, or if we had inter-school sports days, I would never run flat out. I would just do enough to show that I was okay. I mean, I wasn't like dipping on the line with others, but I would slow down because I hated the attention. And still, even at that younger age, I lacked that confidence and I didn't like to really stand out. But I did like, I just liked being good at something. And I think it was almost, how good could I actually get? That's what I think drove me almost. So, yeah.
That must be, I can imagine that was so funny. They were like, oh, here comes Sally.
I know, can you imagine?
I don't stand a chance.
Give up now.
Yeah, I don't stand a chance. Because that kind of leads us on to another question. Like, what would you say was one of your biggest obstacles you faced, either in training or in competition? And I'd love to know how you overcame that. Like, what was one of your biggest challenges?
I think it wasn't really until right towards sort of the end of when I got help and worked out, but I was not the most confident of people. I would always go, oh, they've got new spikes on, they're 6 foot tall, they look like an athlete and I don't. And I would always put myself down, always think I wasn't good enough. I mean, I did, when I got out there, I'd have that determination, but I was never, I didn't have that sort of, you watch people, isn't it? Maybe it's the good thing, I don't know, but I didn't have that real arrogant side or, wander around like, I'd got it or whatever. I was, always a little bit shy, a little bit reserved, a little bit, worry about what other people would think and all of those sorts of things, really. And I think, it did hold me back quite a lot in my career and, thinking that I wasn't good enough and I couldn't do this sort of stuff and, being quite scared. And it wasn't until, I realised I had to, get help and work with a sports psychologist, because I'd always worry about where everybody else was in the race and who was leading and who'd gone off too fast and have I gone off too slow. And you can't do that. You got to have your plan and you got to stick with it and react to things that go around, but be totally in control. And that's the sort of bit I had to sort of learn, really. So, yeah.
So you worked with a sports psychologist, and did that, obviously that helped, because what you're saying there is so true, isn't it? Like, we all have that imposter syndrome. I think there's that imposter syndrome, and I suppose what you're saying is that humbleness. That word humble really came through for me, that actually you had a humbleness to you, but actually also that can hold you back a little bit sometimes. And the sports psychologist, like, how would you say that helped you?
I think he just helped me to just visualize, take yourself to the day, have a plan. Things could go wrong, but how you would react to it, how you'd get back on it. It was all about that preparation bit. you'd prep to train, but I never used to prep to train the mind. So it was just
Yes.
prepping to train the mind, and just, learn to shut up that horrid little voice that's always in your head, isn't it? We all have it. God,
Yeah.
every day. Still now you go, God, can I really do this? Am I good enough? I've got so many emails and haven't exercised for a week, or put on weight. Yeah, and if we just keep telling ourselves we're rubbish and we can't do stuff, it's, we don't achieve what we're really capable of doing. So I think that's what I was really happening, and I just had to learn, to throw that voice out. And I am good enough. I trained hard enough. I deserve this. You're just as good as everybody else. And, you know what you've got to do. Just see yourself doing it, and all of those sorts of things, really. So, yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
powerful.
so powerful. I mean, do you still use those tools today?
Yeah, very much so. I still do a lot of motivational speaking, and sometimes it's quite scary to stand on stage, and I think sometimes when you're going through, I don't know, menopause and things like that, your anxiety sort of appears, and you're like, well, I never used to be like this. And then all of a sudden,
I hear you.
I think it's sort of really helped me in those sort of situations, or something just a little bit nerve-wracking. And also I work, with loads of ladies at life's hurdles, getting them fit, but so much of it is around mindset. And that just to keep yourself fit and healthy is around the mindset, and how you cope with it, and how you don't throw all these diets away, and how you don't, you do your 3 weeks of exercise and you throw it away. It's like that whole piece is around mindset, and that's the bit that I've just loved, and that's the bit that I totally believe in. And I always say that, when I was racing, probably 70% of it was in the mind on that day. And I think as much as 60-70% of stuff that we do is in the mind, and whether we achieve it or not, really. So, yeah.
I think it's so true. So many people go for the external, and they think if they do different things, just keep focusing on those external things. If I do this different, and completely ignoring how powerful the mind part of that is, rather than just doing. Like, why do I keep self-sabotaging? What's that? What are those belief systems that I have around myself and my success? So yeah, we're
I
totally
think it's about knowing what your why is. I think we're so scared of knowing why are we doing these things. It's actually taking yourself to this. And when we talk about weight loss or getting fit, it's like, well, actually, I want to be able to walk up a hill without getting out of breath. I want to be able to, I don't know, get up out of a chair and when I age, and I think it's really important. I think sometimes we don't allow ourselves to go to the why, and that's what I used to do. I wouldn't allow myself to think of actually being an Olympic champion. It's like, well, that's arrogance, and that might not happen, so I won't actually take myself. But actually, it's a really important part of it. And it is the mind piece. Is like, what is your why, and why are we doing this? And then that power of seeing yourself achieving it, and what that would actually feel like. So
that's exactly, you're on the completely same page as us. Like, that's what we always talk to our clients about, and the visualization is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it is. And it's, everybody can do it. It's just, getting the tools, getting the help, not being scared to have a coach, somebody to look after you. I still have people that coach me within business, or people that coach me within the gym, because I know it all, but I can't be bothered, It keeps me that accountable. So I think that's really important. And then I think it is about, just, reaching out and asking for that help and support, really, and just talk it through with other people rather than always doing it yourself.
Absolutely. Something I wanted to ask you about was obviously, like, through your athletics career, you're very goal focused. You've always got the next event coming up that you're focusing on. But when it all finished, how did you find that transition towards kind of leaving? Because that was from a very young age, from like 12, that you had that very intense focus on what you're doing, and then for that to end, how did you find that transition, and how did you, I guess, find your purpose in the next stage?
I mean, it's very difficult, because you retire at 31, and it's so final. Do you know what I mean? It is just like a day, and that is it. And you realize, it's not until you retire and you look back that you've only known one life. Do you know what I mean? And it's not what I call a normal life, in that, you're so focused on yourself, what you eat, what you train, how good can I get? And then all of a sudden it's like, well, that you can't go through life like that. You've got to look after others. You've got to respect others. And so it was a massive transition. I think the last couple of years I got lots of injuries. I think you do need to know what you're going to do afterwards. You can't just stop it. I had to have plans. I had to, like my athletics days, I had to have visions and know what it was and goals and whatever. So I did the same sort of thing. But I was never that one goal that I had as an Olympic champion. It was like, okay, I want to learn new sports. I wanted to go skiing. I wanted to go go-karting. Silly little things. I wanted to work on telly. I wanted to, at the time we were looking at having a gym. And so I had all little visions in my mind. And I think once you've got that helps. But it does take time. It was a real big transition. I think I had incredible people around me that keep my feet on the ground. I had some incredible opportunities, which I think, I was a bit like, well, let's just take it now, which was great. But also, I think having kids helped. I felt pregnant almost straight away. And then all of a sudden, it's not about you. You've got something else to look after. So I think that really helped me. But it does take a few years. And I tried to be somebody else, because I was in, the media, the video, on telly, whatever it was. And you can't do that. And that took me a good few years to go, again, forget what other people think. Just be yourself. Because, telly can be a very critical place. And, and you have to be quite tough. And I think you get that from sport, but it's very, very different world. And it's just adjusting and doing new things, really. And understanding yourself in a different format, and it does take time, and I really understand why so many people struggle, really.
I always think it must have been so difficult. We had Ceci Redgrave on, didn't we, on our podcast a few weeks ago, quite a few weeks ago now, and he said exactly the same. It took him a really long time to redefine. It's that self-identity piece, isn't it?
Yeah, I think having kids really, really helped me, because there's this love and this bond for something else, and you can't be selfish. And I really enjoyed that, and I think that really, really helped. And that almost happened, I don't know, within the first sort of 18 months. So I think it really helped me on that sort of transition sort of stage. And also I'd had enough of competition. I'd had enough of putting myself on the line, pressure, because, when the people expect you to win every single time you go out, it's hard. And I didn't miss that. That's the bit. And I was quite relieved that I didn't have to do that. And I didn't have to get up and train every day.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
I was going to ask, because you mentioned something there, like, I wanted to try new things like skiing. Were there like things that you weren't really allowed to do because you're an athlete? So if you said, I'm going to go off skiing, your coach would be like, no way, Sally, because if you injure yourself.
Well, that's it. You just couldn't. I went with the school when I was sort of like 14, 15, and then that was it. You just couldn't go with it. It's just too risky. And so there was loads of little things like that I really was excited about doing and stuff.
Brilliant.
So.
I've got to ask as well, were you competitive? Like, because actually sometimes as well, like this whole thing about competitiveness, I don't know, like sometimes it's what uses a dirty word sometimes. I have to say, especially with us women, right? Sometimes it's kind of like, I want to seem quite humble. I don't want to seem over competitive. But actually, I think it's an amazing thing if we're competitive with ourselves and kind of like our boundaries. Were you like that in all the other sports that you then went on to, like if you were skiing or if you were going go-karting or something like that, was that just in you, or was it for your particular sport?
I think it's something, it's that nature nurture thing, isn't it? And it comes out, and it's weird because there was a number of years where I didn't want to do anything competitive. So I wouldn't even play cards, tiddlywinks, I was just like, and then I remember it was my eldest son. I don't know. We got one of these assault course bouncy castles, and he was about 4 years old. And I was lined up next to one of the dads, and this thing came out of me, this competitive edge. I thought, bloody hell, I haven't seen that for about 4 or 5 years. And it just all of a sudden just came
That's
back.
amazing.
So I don't think it does ever leave you. And I think one of the other traits that sport has given me is that I'm a bit of a fixer. So, so many things go wrong in sport. And if you think about it, you train every single day, and you train because you want to get better. So you're always very critical. You're always like, well, if I put my left leg there, if I do this, so you're always on a bit of a fixing things and learning. And I think one of my traits that I really had to think about is you can't fix everything. You can't check, because I'm a bit like, there's got to be a reason. We've got to get out of this.
Right.
Sometimes you need days. You need to think about things and what is right. But I think I annoy everybody because I'm so like, right, we've got to sort this out. We've got to do this and we've got to do that. And I know it's sport that has taught me that. So yeah, I think I drive people mad.
Well, it's those things are in your control. I imagine with the sport, you're like, oh, just move the foot a little bit like that, and then tweak your diet a little bit. Those are the things that are in your control.
Yes.
But I suppose when you come out of it, there are so many things in life that you can't control, and we can't that we can't necessarily change ourselves. And I suppose adapting to that must have been quite hard.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit like that. But I think also you do learn so much about the process and the ups and the downs. And, when things go wrong, it's like, that's how we learn. And, and that is life. And, accept that. Whereas I think, and I think that's been a good thing, whereas, lots of people I know, it's like, oh, I'm rubbish at everything. I can't do anything and always goes wrong. And, it's about how you pick yourself up and move on, isn't it? So I think that's been good to be able to share that and help people and, support them in that sort of way, especially that whole
really positive approach to it. So I wanted to ask about is you do a lot of work with organisations now around wellbeing. So how did that come about? How did you get into that?
Well, I've been doing probably nearly 20 years now, and it's gone much more around health and well-being. So it was, I still do the motivational speak. People still talk about where they were on that night in Barcelona or whatever else. But it's, people are wanting to look after themselves, and organisations know that, they want healthy staff to be much more productive and what's gone on. So, a lot of the talks I do now and how I support companies is around, the health and well-being of just how important those little 1% are of, how we sleep and how we fuel our bodies, and we don't get the little slump in the afternoon, and, how our bodies just change at different times of, throughout life, and all of those sorts of things. And I think, God, I've been on this journey. I've learned so much, and it's just, and I love sharing, and so much of it is about building people's confidence and that ability to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, it's so important. And actually, some of the things that we've been talking about recently, we had someone on our podcast last week talking about ageism in the workplace.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I just wondered, as someone that's midlife now, as well as us, what do you think are the most important factors, that workplaces need to look at when it comes to recognizing ageism and the value, really, I suppose, a value of more mature talent?
Yeah, I think it's about tapping into the knowledge that these people have, but also, it's physically and mentally, we've still got so much to offer. There's so much more science around how we help ourselves and how we can keep ourselves so much more engaged and energized. 50 and 60 is nothing now, is it?
No.
You know what I mean? It's like we're still so capable of everything, and everybody can have that outlook in life, and there are so much that you can. And I think in the workplace there's a lot of people that are like that, and and I know there's burnout, and I know there's pressure and all of those sorts of things that people put themselves under, but that sometimes is about, tapping into those, those little tiny things that can change you and give you that outlook of, downtime and how we deal with, anxiety and feeling overwhelmed and, adding in some breath work or whatever, there's tiny little things that can make such a difference. And, and I think it's about understanding people within the workplace, knowing that women are changing as we go through menopause, but it doesn't make us any different to how we can perform. And I think it's just that spreading that knowledge and having those conversations, and that's what needs to be done.
Yeah, I totally
I agree with
agree.
that.
I totally agree. And like James is doing a lot of work around men's, like midlife men's mental health now as well, because the andropause isn't spoken about. And obviously the menopause and the andropause are very, very, very different experiences. And there's not, we're not trying to compare them both. We're just trying to raise awareness really of what happens to men as their testosterone starts to decline in midlife, and the impact that has on their mental health. And I think it is just about opening up those conversations, but particularly
In the workplace.
in the workplace and at midlife, because like you said, we've got so much to give. It's not like our generations gone by, even our parents, right? 50, 55, 60, it kind of was old. We're in a very different world now. And there's a skills shortage in the workplace, apparently. So like, why are we completely sidelining people over 50? And this ageism is such a big thing as well.
Also, I think that's getting that balance, isn't it? Of, there's so much hybrid working now, isn't there? Which is great, but you're not learning from those people. You haven't got those role models that, we all need. I've had role models throughout my whole life. And as I said, I'm still being coached, and you need, that knowledge that people have, that they've gone through their career, to be able to talk at the coffee machine or whatever. And, I'm not saying everybody needs to get back into work, because I think there is that work-life balance, but I think it is about getting that balance and understanding how we can still learn from people. And I think so often we think we know it all, and I think it is about, we never know everything. We should always be learning and learning off other people and asking those questions, and how important just having that knowledge, isn't it? And I think, if you've got that knowledge, and it is, we talk around the menopause, we can then make our choices. And I think, men need to have that knowledge still. I think they're still not there by any means. And I think that's something that we really need to talk about. And then you can have your choices. And once then it's, your own journey, and you can help yourself and have, go and ask for that help, whether that's within the organizations or personally, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it hopefully takes the stigma and shame out of it, because us women, we do tend to talk about our feelings a lot more, and there's still stigma and shame around burnout and all that kind of stuff anyway, and I suppose growing old. But for guys asking for that help, there is still some shame around the vulnerability, and I suppose talking about some of the stuff that you do when you go into workplaces, and that James goes in and talks about with the andropause. I think hopefully
I love what you said actually about educating men, because I actually go in and talk to male audiences about the menopause, help them be better menopause allies. Like, wow, always get a full audience. And men are funny, right? You ask at the end, you're like, any questions? They'd all sit quietly, but then it's like, except then they all come up one by one. Go, I need to realise that, I never realised this. And it's so powerful, because there's been massive steps forward in menopause awareness, which is amazing. There's still so much work to do. But I think, we must remember, for many men, their experience of it will be their mothers going through it at a time when it wasn't really talked about.
Oh, gosh.
Now they're faced, with their partner going through it, and they're kind of like, I'm not really sure what's going on. So, it's just great to have the conversation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's about knowledge, isn't it? And I think men aren't quite there yet. I mean, I'm not sure I really know what goes on, so we need to know as well.
Yes.
And, and I've got 3 boys, and
oh, wow.
but they know so much, I mean, Luke and my middle one at 23, we work together at Life's Hurdles with all these menopausal women, and the stuff that he knows is incredible. And, my eldest son as well, he owns a gym, and but it's brilliant to hear them, at 23 and 26, having this sort of knowledge and this conversation. And that's the norm. And that's what we need to talk about, don't we, on both fronts? And I think the more we can do that, the better, for sure.
Absolutely. I was such that, it's so much advice out there for people, particularly for midlifers. What would you say would be your key advice for anyone that's like, oh, I'm feeling a bit flat, or I can't get well? What would be the key changes they can make just to kind of feel better?
Yeah, I think it's understanding what, having 7 or 8 hours sleep can do to you. I mean, we all know if I don't sleep, I'm the most grumpiest mum around. Do you know what I mean? So exactly, there you go. And
I'm pointing to James right now. This is audio you're going to be listening to, but right now I'm pointing to James. If he doesn't get his sleep,
I need my sleep.
everybody knows. But you know, we then make bad choices. You know, we often put on weight in midlife is because we're not sleeping very well. So we then we haven't got the willpower to not snack the next day, or we haven't got the willpower to do any exercise. So it's a vicious circle. So I think sleep is much more that we're talking about it now, and creating that, you know, that environment, that eating 2 hours before we go to bed, and, you know, all of those sorts of things, a cooler room and all of those things. I think it's really important to do that. I just think it's the physical side of it as well. Do you know, it for me, I go for a walk, I'll go for a run, I go to the gym, and it's much more around my mental health, because it's those natural endorphins. I feel so much better about myself. I know, you know, I've had to adapt because I can't do what I used to do. You know, I've learned so much in the last sort of 10 years, you know, about how weak my body's got, and I can't lift the weights that I used to do, and how I've had to adapt, and I can't run like I used to. So, you know, it's quite frustrating, but I've embraced it rather than go, well, forget it. And I think lots of men go, I can't do what I used to do, I'm going to give up or whatever. And, you know, and how I've just changed. And I think, again, it's that knowledge about, okay, so we can't do that, but there's so much we can do, and how much it is. I would just say to anybody, get up, get your steps in. If you can get up, too many of us are sitting at sofas or at our desks, and we're not getting up and we're not getting those steps in. Getting those steps in can make such a big difference. So lunchtime, mornings, whatever, up and down the stairs instead of the lift. Actually, those little things make such a difference if there's one thing they do.
Absolutely. Like I've had to change. I say this quite a lot. You know, I loved my cardio, and I always loved my weights, but I loved my cardio. But actually, I got to a point where I actually had burnout at the beginning of May 2023, and that really just like stopped me. So it was a physical, mental, and emotional like. And actually, after that, I suppose it's the wisdom that comes with age as well. You're like, what was I doing to my body to make it do that? Yeah, it was a mental thing as well. What was I doing to it? And I look back now, and the amount of sessions I was doing, cortisol would have been through the absolute
let's not think about the time you went to hospital, but then still said you had to get your steps in.
I don't know whether you've heard of it, Sally, but I did 75 hard. Have you ever heard of this?
No, what's that?
75 days. Obviously, what it says on the tin. 75 days hard. So I was doing 2 workouts a day.
Oh my God.
Okay. No rest days.
Honestly, I would never have told any of my clients to do that. But for me, I was like, no, because I'm just I'm just stupid, clearly. I look back now and I'm like, actually, I did those.
Let's use a kind word. You're stubborn and
determined. Yeah, but we all came from more is better. Do you know what I mean? And that was exactly the same for me. And you have to change that mindset. And I've had to, you know, I have rest days now, which same as you, I never used to, you know. But a rest day could be going to get some steps in, or doing a bit of yoga or a bit of Pilates. But, you know, I am much more conscious. And that is, again, how our bodies have changed over the menopause. Our bodies we've got to lift weights, and then we've got to recover. So our muscles get strong. So there's science behind it of why we're having those rest days. You know, we'll be better for it, not just mentally, but physically we need those. So that's just an understanding of what's changed, really. But
definitely.
Which leads us nicely to life's hurdles, because this is your platform that coaches people and all this stuff. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yes, tell us about it.
You know what, I've been looking for absolutely years, because I go into organisations, I motivate all these people for an hour, and all these women come up and go, oh my God, you've given me confidence, you've changed it. But I never had anything that I could really do afterwards. And I've been looking for years. People have approached me. I've tried this. And then last May, it was actually my son. And he just came to me and he said, and he'd been in the fitness marketing. He's a personal trainer. And he just said, Mum, there's so many people are reaching out to you that want to be healthy, they want to be fit, and they don't know what to do. Come on, let's do this. So that was it. We started, and I absolutely love it. And we've got incredible women that the difference is, it's all online, but we chat to them. We have WhatsApps. We have certain phone calls with them if they're struggling. So we have that real accountability bit. We help them. We guide them. And through weight fitness programs for them, we do 2 lives. We had specialists in doing chats. We look at how to get more protein into their diet so we can get those muscles strong. And all the ladies are probably, 40, 45 plus, and we're all in the same boat. We're going through menopause. We've put weight on through our tummies. We've got elderly parents. We've got kids that should have probably have left but are still at home, and we don't do anything for ourselves. And they all come to me, and this whole thing, you get to 50s, and I don't want to be like my parents in their 80s. I want to be more physically active. What can I do? And it's never too late. And we just help and support them. And how, the ladies have just stayed on with us. And it's just been brilliant to see that mindset, confidence, and them just saying, you've changed our lives. And I just love it. I just absolutely love it every day.
I can see how you actually love it. It's so nice to see this big grin, and the fact that you're doing it with your son as well. That's just.
And he's 23 years old. And at the beginning, I could see these women going, hang on a minute, the same age as my son. Now they love him. And I look back and I think he was, out of my 3 boys, he was the one that sat on the Arga and listened to all us mums chatting over the years. And I just think that's why he's so good with them all, and he's just so motivating, so much energy, and he brings the technical bits that I can't do all that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, they've been brought up with it, Sally.
Social media and all of this. He just brings that, and I can do the bit I love, which is chatting to the ladies, messaging them on the phone, and that's the bit that I love, and just putting some of the programs and getting the experts in, and it's brilliant.
Fantastic. It sounds incredible.
I have to say as well, what an awesome name.
I know.
What, especially for you as well,
but it is, isn't it? It's about getting over the hurdles in life. But what I love is, when we didn't do this, they've all named themselves the hurdlers. So they're not my ladies; they're the hurdlers. So everybody that comes on are known as the hurdlers. And
I love that.
That's great. And where can people find that? Is there a URL for that?
Well, the best thing to do is probably follow me on Instagram. So it's all on there, or they can go and have a look at Life's Hurdles, but it's all under Sally Gunnell. So just go and have a look at that. Or they can go to the website, but any sort of social media, Facebook as well. So
we'll put all the links.
Show notes.
We'll put all the links on there. And it's just been,
Sally, that's been awesome chat. Thank you.
Your energy is really infectious, and how you're talking about what you're doing. I suppose that you're the poster woman really for that reinvention and kind of really embracing that kind of midlife transition, I suppose, and through the menopause, and the work that you're doing just in general, but especially with Life's Hurdles. I feel like that's just really beautiful.
I think it's just, I've always had to reinvent myself, and to me now this is what the next 10 years is about. And I think once isn't it, sometimes a change is better than anything, isn't it? It just gives you that energy. So just very lucky.
Thanks, Sally.
Thank you so much. You've been great to chat to.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Midlife Mentors with Claire and James Davis.
We'd love to hear from you. So drop us a line at info@themidlifementors.com. with any questions or topic suggestions.
And make sure you join us on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. You can find us under the Midlife Mentors.
Yeah. What? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. And don't forget to take the Midlife Reset Audit now to receive personalised insights into what's holding you back from living your healthiest, happiest midlife. So go ahead and take the audit now at themidlifementors.com/audit.